Historically, the struggle for women's rights has been evident and prominent. The first time feminism came into play to a larger scale was during the time of the Enlightenment. There were many women who were brave enough to take the first step into the spread of feminism. They were like wildfire, powerful and passionate, bright and abundant. There have been many women before the first wave of feminism that were prominent. There were also many women during the first wave of feminism that had a large impact on the world today. One of the women before the first wave of feminism who was the most famous for her work during the time of the French Revolution was Olympe de Gouges. Olympe de Gouges was a playwright but wasn't as well known for the plays she wrote. She was an activist that encouraged the improvement of divorce conditions, maternity hospitals, and was an abolitionist. She was also known for her work that countered the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen by writing the Declaration of the Rights of Women and of the Female Citizen due to the exclusivity of the first declaration made during the French Revolution. She was prominent as a feminist because of the large impact that the declaration had. It was important because it stated that women actually had the same rights as men and that they had natural rights that were inalienable. It was considered an extremely radical declaration during this time period, which was highly influential to many women during this time and later on. This document remains as one of the most important documents in the history of feminism. Another woman who had a large impact on the rights for women would be Mary Wollstonecraft. Mary Wollstonecraft was an English writer who was seen to be extremely radical, and she lived during the time of the French Revolution and wrote a vindication of the rights of women, as well as previously writing a vindication of the rights of men to show her favor towards the French Revolution. It was a response to a criticism of the French Revolution, but she was someone who could be seen as more radical at the time, and she supported the rights of all people, one of them being the right to revolt. More importantly, the vindication of the rights of women was similar to her previous work due to the way she opposed the opinion of women only needing domestic education. She argued greatly that men and women were equal, and they were both capable of doing the same things. She was important due to the vindication for women that she wrote, as she was one of the earliest, most prominent figures who was seen as radical and as someone who advocated for women's rights. She later influenced women like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and was known as the mother of feminism. Mary Estelle was an earlier English writer, and she was regarded as one of the first feminists due to her early prominence and contribution to the feminist movement that was beginning to rise more openly at this time. The first feminist book that was written would be identified as her own book, A Serious Proposal to the Ladies, which is even earlier than Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication, that was a more heavily regarded book of feminism. Mary Estelle isn't the most recognized feminist, but she was among the first female philosophers and was a prominent figure due to her early contribution to feminism, especially when the people around her were extremely judgmental or unaccepting of her beliefs. Her bravery so early on is admirable and will continue to be throughout history. These women were prominent before the first wave of feminism, and other women followed in their footsteps, such as Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth was an American feminist and an abolitionist. She worked towards gaining rights for everyone, not just women, but for people of color as well. She is very well known through her advocacy since she was a strong, prominent figure during this time. Her most well-known speech would be Ain't I a Woman? She presented this speech at the Women's Rights Convention in 1951. This is one of the most historically recognized works for the demands of the rights of women and of people of color. She was a part of the first wave of feminism, which was more widespread than the feminists of the Enlightenment. The most well-known figures during this first wave of feminism would be Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was an American writer. Elizabeth was a feminist who worked all her life to achieve the rights of women by basically any means necessary. She had first tried to attend an anti-slavery convention, which wasn't successful because she was a woman. From that moment, she worked to make a convention herself that was for women. She is most well known for her contributions to organizing the first women's rights convention. She used ideals from the Enlightenment, such as the belief that women have natural rights, as she explicitly had stated such ideals at the convention and throughout her time as an activist. She was also well known for her friendship with another large figure, Susan B. Anthony, who was extremely well known for her contributions to the first movement of feminism. She did many things with her, as well as co-founding an association with her and being editors for a newspaper, as well as traveling the country with her. She was also recognized for her speech, The Solitude of Self, which was a poem she presented many times to help fight for the rights of women passionately. As previously mentioned, Susan B. Anthony was an American feminist and an abolitionist who worked closely with Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She started her activism with her speeches that were against the act of slavery. After she met Stanton at the convention she organized, they became great friends and traveled together. She continued giving speeches as she co-founded the American Equal Rights Association with Elizabeth. They both also became editors of the newspaper, The Revolution, to bring awareness to women's suffrage. She was famous, and one of her acts brought awareness and attention to women's suffrage movement when she was fined for attempting to vote. All of her actions and accomplishments were huge, inspiring steps that were taken for women to gain their rights that would make them equal under the law. Overall, these women were prominent and important for their own times. The Enlightenment feminist women introduced these seemingly radical ideas of women having the same equal rights as men, using philosophies and their own ideals to merge their beliefs together. They took the first step towards equality between men and women, but many may argue that their effectiveness was doubted due to the little social mobility that these women caused. On the contrary, these women took the first radical, brave, and bold move towards the beginning of a larger scale of feminism. The women who came after during the first wave of feminism used influence from these women and their works to continue fighting for the rights of women as their works became widespread, fueling the feminist movement throughout many countries. All of these women are significant because of the contribution they had to humanity now, as their works are never forgotten and their actions continue contributing largely to our society when we look back to see the great figures who were able to give women now the same playing field as men. They took a small step for women, yet a large leap for humanity, with no better example than our modern day society.